I wasn't supposed to be home that early. She didn't hear the door, didn't hear my keys hit the counter, or the soft creak of the floorboards under my shoes. She was in the kitchen, laughing, voice too sweet, too soft. I told him I was working late again, she said. Pause. Another laugh. Quieter this time. Intimate. I didn't move. Just stood in the hallway. Frozen. Listening. No, he doesn't suspect anything, she whispered. He never does. The silence in me wasn't fear. It wasn't heartbreak. It was precision. I watched her from the shadows, wineglass in hand, leaning against the fridge like she was in some scene from a romantic movie. Except the man on the other end of that call wasn't me. I didn't barge in. Didn't ask who. Didn't scream. I just listened. And in those 15 seconds, everything changed. Because it wasn't the lie that broke me. It was how easily she told it. How confidently she stepped into deception like it was a second skin. That's when I knew. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was betting I'd never find out. That I'd stay safe. Predictable. Passive. And maybe she was right before. Not now. Now I wasn't her husband. I was a ghost learning how to haunt the living. She ended the call with a smile in her voice, oblivious to the fact that her entire life had just cracked. She turned. Saw me. And for a split second, just one, something flickered in her eyes. But she played it off. Oh hey, I didn't hear you come in. I smiled. That was the moment she should have known something was wrong. But she didn't. Because she thought she was still in control. She poured another glass of wine. Offered me one. I declined. She shrugged. Rough day. Something like that. We sat in silence. She scrolled through her phone. I stared at her like a stranger across a battlefield. And in my mind, I started the clock. Not to explode. Not to confront. To vanish. Piece by piece. Without warning. Without explanation. Without ever raising my voice. I was going to teach her what it meant to lose someone who gave everything without asking for anything back. Because the worst kind of revenge isn't rage. It's absence. And she was about to drown in it. She didn't ask about the call. Didn't ask why I came home early. Didn't ask why I barely touched my dinner. That was her first mistake. Because silence isn't always forgiveness. Sometimes it's a signal. A beginning. The next morning, I didn't make her coffee. Didn't ask if she slept well. Just grabbed my keys and left. No goodbye. No glance. She texted around noon. Everything okay? I read it. Didn't reply for 2 hours. Then sent back. All good. 2 words. Flat. Final. That evening, I got home later than usual. No explanation. No lie. Just walked in, hung up my coat, sat at the far end of the couch. She looked up from her phone. Studied me. You all right? I nodded. Tired. That was it. She waited for more. She didn't get it. Because the version of me that used to fill every silence, he was gone. And she felt it. Not through shouting. Through subtraction. The next few days, I stuck to the pattern. Quiet. Cold. Controlled. No affection. No questions. No arguments. I moved around her like she was furniture I no longer noticed. Like the weight of her presence had been removed from my orbit. It shook her. Not immediately. But in pieces. The small rituals began to break. I stopped waiting for her after work. Ate alone. Slept with my back turned. She asked again that Friday. Did I do something? I looked up from my phone. No. She paused. You've been weird lately. I've been watching lately. Watching what? How it feels to be invisible. She didn't reply. Because there's nothing to say when someone uses your own silence against you. That weekend, she tried to reset the clock. Woke up early. Made breakfast. Put on the perfume I once said made her smell like a memory. I sat at the table. Ate in silence. Didn't compliment the eggs. Didn't ask why she suddenly cared. She asked if I wanted to watch something together. I told her I had things to do. She blinked. Then smiled, fake, strained, uncertain. Because the man who once rearranged his world to be near her was now a shadow, drifting in and out of rooms she no longer owned. And the scariest part? I wasn't angry. I was at peace. Detached. Distant. Dangerous in a way she never prepared for. I knew she was starting to spiral when she called me by my full name Sunday evening. Not the pet name. Not the soft voice. Just 3 syllables. Like she was trying to summon the old version of me. But he didn't answer. Because I wasn't playing anymore. I was planning. And the worst kind of silence isn't absence. It's strategy. She thought she could lie and walk away clean. But I was already removing her from the equation. One conversation at a time. One withheld word at a time. One cold, unreadable stare at a time. And soon, she would start chasing the very attention she once treated like an afterthought. Because you don't notice loyalty until it forgets your name. Monday morning, she waited for me in the kitchen. Hair done. Makeup on. Coffee already poured, mine, not hers. That was new. Morning, she said softly. I nodded. Took the coffee. Didn't say thank you. Because thanks are earned. And she hadn't earned a word from me in days. She watched me drink it, searching my face like a mirror she didn't recognize. I was thinking we could go out this weekend, she said. Just us. I didn't look up. Maybe. She waited for more. I didn't give it. Because sometimes silence says more than closure ever could. At work, I rerouted part of my paycheck. New account. Private. She didn't know the password because she never asked questions when she thought she had answers. I canceled a few things. The streaming platforms she used. The subscriptions I paid for quietly. The shared grocery list we kept on our phones. Gone. No announcements. Just deletions. When she tried to log into Hulu that night, it failed. She sighed from the couch. Something's wrong with the account. I didn't answer. She said it louder. Waiting. Still silence. She reset the password. It didn't help. Because this wasn't a glitch. This was the beginning of the erasure. The following day, I stayed at the office until 9. Not because I had work. I just didn't want to go home. When I finally walked in, she was sitting at the kitchen table. Dinner cold. 2 plates. 2 candles. Too late. You didn't say you'd be late, she murmured. I didn't think I had to. That landed. Right in her chest. I sat down. Ate in silence. She didn't touch her food. She didn't touch me either. That night, I heard her crying in the bathroom. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just that soft, shaking kind of cry people do when they realize they're not the main character anymore. I didn't check on her. Didn't knock. Didn't ask what was wrong. Because that's what I used to do. And he was gone. The next morning, she placed her hand on mine at breakfast. Small. Deliberate. Looking for connection. I let it sit there. Didn't pull away. Didn't squeeze back. Just let her hand rest like a feather on stone. Eventually, she moved it. No words. No accusations. But I saw it. That tiny collapse behind her eyes. That flicker of panic. She was starting to understand something was slipping, and she couldn't name it. She tried again that evening. Dinner. Wine. Music we used to play. I ate. Drank. Didn't comment. Didn't engage. And when she finally said, I miss us, I didn't even look up. I just said, I miss me too. She stopped chewing. Her fork paused midair. But I kept going. Because that line wasn't for drama. It was truth. I miss the man I used to be before I started shrinking to fit her version of love. Before I had to earn attention with perfect behavior. Before she decided that devotion was default and intimacy was negotiable. She excused herself after that. Closed the bedroom door softly, like noise might make it worse. I stayed on the couch. Slept better than I had in months. Because something in me had shifted from recovery to redesign. And she was still clinging to the old blueprint. But I'd already started building the exit. It started with questions. Not the kind you ask when you're curious. The kind you ask when you're afraid. You've been different lately, she said one night, standing in the doorway as I folded laundry. Have I? I replied, not looking up. Are you seeing someone? I smiled. Not because it was funny, but because it confirmed everything I suspected. Should I be? She didn't answer. Just stared. And I let the silence breathe. Let it get uncomfortable. Because nothing reveals guilt faster than stillness. She tried to play it off the next morning. Kissed me on the cheek like she used to. Asked if I needed anything from the store. I said, no. She lingered. Waited for warmth. Got none. That afternoon, I checked our shared calendar. The one we never really used anymore. She'd started filling it up again, meetings, workshops, girls' nights. All vague. All carefully spaced. All convenient. I clicked one. Creative Circle, 7 p.m. She wasn't creative. Never had been. Didn't paint. Didn't write. Didn't even post captions on her Instagram without asking me to check the grammar. But now, suddenly creative. I didn't confront her. Didn't accuse. Just waited. That night, she came home smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. Subtle. Faint. But it was there. I noticed. She waited for me to ask. I didn't. She asked how my day was. I said, quiet. And it was. But inside, everything was shifting. I started watching patterns. Phone habits. New clothes. The sudden energy she had for 7 p.m. meetings that used to leave her drained by 5. She had changed, but not in a way that meant growth. In a way that meant hiding. I noticed how she never left her phone face up anymore. How she took it with her, even to the bathroom. How she started locking her laptop. Not suspiciously. Strategically. Like someone who knows exactly what they're protecting. And here's the twist. I wasn't angry. I was calm. Because I was done reacting. Now, I was just collecting. Data. Behavior. Rhythms. She once said I was too observant. That I remembered things no one else did. That I could read a room faster than I spoke. She was right. And now, I was reading her like a closed book she forgot was already memorized. The next week, I did something simple. Subtle. I placed a Bluetooth tracker under her passenger seat. Not illegal. Not invasive. Just informative. And what it told me was everything I needed to know. Because Creative Circle met at a boutique hotel. Twice. Always room 504. Same time. Same car parked out front. Same man stepping in behind her. I didn't take pictures. Didn't call a private investigator. Didn't even save the location history. I didn't need proof. I had something better. Control. Because now, I wasn't wondering. I was waiting. Waiting for her to dig her hole deeper. Waiting for her to lie to my face again. Waiting for the moment when she'd try to pull me close. Not out of love. Out of guilt. But when she reached, there'd be nothing there. Just smoke. Just distance. Just the shape of a man she used to have. Before she started borrowing affection from someone else. The day after room 504, she made pancakes. Not from a box. From scratch. Apron on. Hair tied up. Music playing softly in the background. Like a scene from a life she thought we still shared. She smiled when I walked in. Thought I'd surprise you. I looked at the stack of pancakes. The syrup already poured. The knife set perfectly at a diagonal. Appreciate it, I said. Saturday. 8. Didn't compliment the food. Didn't ask what the occasion was. Just chewed in silence. She watched me with that nervous energy of someone trying to read a storm that hadn't broken yet. I let her stare. Let her wonder if this was forgiveness or detachment. Because the worst kind of punishment is uncertainty. That afternoon, she started following me around the house more. Asking questions she hadn't asked in months. How was your day? Did you sleep okay? What are you thinking about? I gave her answers that sounded like closure. Not much. Fine. Nothing important. Every word a scalpel. Every breath a boundary. That weekend, she offered to go hiking with me. Something she used to hate. I think it'd be nice, she said. I shrugged. If you want. She packed snacks. Smiled at me in the passenger seat like a woman trying to resurrect a version of herself she killed a year ago. We walked in silence. She tried to hold my hand halfway through the trail. I let her. But I didn't squeeze. Didn't swing our arms like we used to. Just let her cling. And when she looked at me, searching for softness, I looked at the horizon. Because the view mattered more than the performance. That night, she initiated intimacy. First time in weeks. Maybe months. No prelude. No context. Just slipped into bed and moved closer like she hadn't checked into a hotel with someone else 2 nights earlier. I didn't stop her. But I didn't respond. Just lay there. Still. Eyes open. She kissed my shoulder. Whispered something meant to sound sweet. I closed my eyes. Faked sleep. Eventually, she pulled away. And the silence between us felt heavier than any rejection. Because this wasn't just distance now. It was the echo of choices made too late. The next morning, I started removing more. Deleted her fingerprint from my phone. Created a backup email. Moved a second round of files into the private drive. Bank statements. Tax returns. The lease agreement she never read. I called the landlord. Asked what it would take to break the contract early. He said, need a 30-day heads up. I said, you'll get it soon. That night, she surprised me with tickets to a concert I'd mentioned in passing 6 months ago. I thought it'd be fun, she said. Just us. I smiled. That's thoughtful. She beamed. But that smile? It wasn't hope. It was rope. Because the more effort she gave, the more she believed she could buy her way back in. What she didn't know? I'd already sold my share of the silence. And the man sitting across from her in that theater wasn't trying to reconnect. He was collecting moments. Final ones. So when I disappeared, she wouldn't just feel my absence. She'd remember how close I sat beside her. And how far away I already was. She brought out the dress again. The black one I used to say made her look like trouble I'd chase anywhere. Hair curled. Wine in her hand. Eyes soft. You remember this? She asked from the doorway. I looked up from my book. I do. That's all. No compliment. No warmth. Just recognition. Like seeing an old photo of a life that ended without ceremony. She hesitated. Waited for me to close the book. I didn't. She walked away quieter than she arrived. Later, she tried again. Sat next to me on the couch, a little too close. You smell good, she said. I nodded. Didn't ask if she meant the cologne or the distance. Because either way, she wasn't getting closer. That week, she started texting again. Small things. Thinking about you. Dinner's on me tonight. Miss your smile. I replied every time. Thanks. Cool. All good. Short. Sharp. Surface level. She once called me emotionally flat. Now she was choking on the taste of her own words. She left love notes in my jacket pocket. Sticky notes on my mirror. Soft apologies written in ink instead of voice. But paper doesn't carry warmth when the hands that wrote it once withheld touch like it was a currency. I read every word. Then tossed them. Not angrily. Not symbolically. Just unbothered. Because when someone starves you for years and finally remembers to feed you, you're already dead at the table. She asked me to talk one night. I feel like we're not us anymore. I nodded. We're not. The silence that followed was heavier than the truth. She tried to laugh it off. That's blunt. I don't do softness anymore, I said. It got me nowhere. She blinked fast. Tried to keep composure. But her voice cracked when she said, I'm trying. I tilted my head. Now. That word hit harder than anything else I could have said. She sat back. Defeated. But still not done. That weekend, she showed up at my gym. Said she was starting a new routine. Asked if I could show her a few things. I smiled politely. I train alone. The old me would have stayed. Explained. Reassured. Now I was done translating affection for someone who never learned the language. By Sunday, she was quiet again. But it wasn't the confident silence she used to wield like a weapon. It was desperation disguised as patience. She stopped texting. Stopped touching. Stopped asking. But I saw it in the way she watched me tie my shoes in the hallway. Like she was trying to memorize the routine, just in case one day I didn't come back. And she was right to worry, because I was already halfway out. Not packing. Not running. Just extracting. Memory by memory. Habit by habit. Until all that was left of me in that house was clothes she folded, plates she cleaned, and a man-shaped absence beside her in bed. It was a Tuesday. Uneventful. Gray sky. Quiet evening. She waited until I was in bed. Lights off. Nothing but the sound of the ceiling fan spinning like time winding down. Then, softly, do you still love me? I didn't move. Didn't exhale. Just stared at the dark. She thought silence meant hesitation. It didn't. It meant answer. She waited. Minutes passed. Then I said quietly, I did. Enough for both of us. Another pause. Heavier this time. Then she whispered, and now? I turned my head. Met her eyes in the shadows. Now I'm not sure who you are. She looked away. Pulled the blanket higher. Curled inward. But it wasn't cold in the room. It was cold between us. She rolled to her side. Silent. And that's when I knew she felt it. Finally, not rejection. Extinction. She stopped asking questions after that. Stopped pretending. The makeup stayed in the drawer. The outfit stopped changing. No more candles. No more fake plans. She moved through the house like someone who knew the electricity had been shut off, but still flipped the switch out of habit. A few days later, she asked if I wanted to go see her family next weekend. We haven't visited in a while, she added quickly, like nostalgia could save us. I looked at her. That's not my family. She nodded slowly. Didn't argue. Didn't push. She was starting to understand that kindness doesn't mean return. That silence doesn't mean there's still a door open. I started moving things. Not dramatically. One drawer at a time. A watch box. A pair of boots. The passport. She didn't ask. She just watched. Her eyes had changed. They used to be calculating. Now they were pleading. But too quietly. She still hadn't said the only sentence that could have mattered. I betrayed you. Because if she said it, it would become real. And if it became real, she'd have to admit that I knew. And that I wasn't going to fight for her. That realization came one night while she sat on the edge of the bed, back to me, hands shaking. She didn't cry. Didn't speak. Just sat there. Then got up. Went to the living room. And stayed there. All night. When I woke, she was still there. Blanket around her shoulders. Eyes red. Phone untouched. TV off. Not asleep. Not alert. Just lost. That was the first morning I didn't feel anything at all. No ache, no grief, no anger. Just the weightless calm of a man who already said goodbye days ago and left his body behind to keep the noise down. She offered me coffee. I declined. She asked if we could talk later. I said sure. But we wouldn't, because there was nothing left to talk about. She had built a house with no windows, and now wondered why no one could breathe inside it. It started with sex. Desperate, clumsy intimacy. Like she thought her body could do what her words couldn't. That night, she climbed into bed without saying anything. Just slid closer, hand on my chest, breath uneven. She kissed me. Slow. Intentional. Like she was tracing the outline of the man she remembered. I didn't move. Didn't stop her. Didn't respond. Eventually, she pulled back. I'm trying, she whispered. I opened my eyes. I know. She waited for more. There wasn't any. Because I wasn't withholding out of cruelty. I just didn't feel anything anymore. And trying to fix that with skin was like watering dead roots. The next day, she cleaned the entire apartment. Top to bottom. Music playing. Hair up. Hoodie sleeves rolled. She used to hate cleaning. Said it made her feel invisible. Now, she was scrubbing every surface like it might erase her mistakes. I walked in, smelled bleach and citrus, saw her on her knees wiping the baseboards. She looked up, smiled too wide. Thought I'd surprise you. You did. I walked past her. Set my bag down. Sat on the couch. Turned on the news. She didn't join me. Just stood in the hallway like a stranger who wasn't sure if she should still knock. That night, she cried. Loud. Messy. No more measured sobs. Just open grief spilling out of a mouth that once told me I was too emotional. She stood in the kitchen, tears dripping onto the tile. I don't know how we got here, she said. I didn't reply. Because we didn't get here. She led. I followed. Until one day, I stopped walking. And when she looked back, I wasn't behind her anymore. Only then did she realize the silence wasn't sulking, it was distance. She offered to go to therapy. Said she'd be open this time. Said she'd listen. Said she was scared. And for the first time in years, I believed her. But belief isn't the same as care. And fear doesn't resurrect what you chose to starve. I can do better, she said. And maybe she could. But not with me. Not anymore. I nodded slowly. I hope you do. She froze. Like that wasn't the line she expected. Like she still thought this was a fight she could win if she just cried hard enough. She stayed quiet after that. Stopped texting. Stopped pretending. But I could feel the shift in her body every time we crossed paths. She had gone from careless to careful. Too careful. She moved slower. Chose words like she was walking through a minefield. Because she knew one wrong step would end whatever illusion of us still lingered. But here's the thing. It already had. I was done pretending to be reachable just because I was still in the room. She'd say, good night. I'd say, you too. She'd say, be safe. I'd nod. But she knew. The warmth wasn't coming back. Because once you let someone freeze in your arms long enough, they don't thaw. They leave. Quietly. Without closure. Without rage. Just absence. So complete. It can't be argued with. She must have known it was close. I started packing in daylight. Not the dramatic kind. No suitcases. No slamming drawers. Just a quiet folding of shirts she'd stopped noticing I wore. One by one, I placed them in a gym bag. Wallet. Keys. Watch. USB drive. She stood in the hallway, arms crossed, voice barely a whisper. Where are you going? Out. For how long? I looked up. As long as it takes. She didn't speak. Didn't cry. Didn't beg. Because the shock wasn't in what I was doing. It was in the fact that I wasn't hiding it anymore. I slept on the couch that night. She didn't try to stop me. Just stood in the doorway again, like a child trying to read a storm through the window. She said, you don't talk to me anymore. I said, you stopped listening years ago. The silence that followed was thick enough to drown in. But I didn't throw a life raft. The next day, I withdrew the last of my name from our shared accounts. Email. Insurance. Utilities. One by one, my digital fingerprints disappeared from the world we built. She asked why the Spotify wasn't working. Because I took my music with me. She opened her mouth. Closed it. She was realizing now this wasn't a tantrum. This was a transition. That weekend, she made dinner. 3 courses. Candlelight. Even wore the necklace I gave her on our 2nd anniversary, the one she hadn't touched in 2 years. I ate. Told her it was good. Then stood up, cleared my plate, and went to the bedroom. Alone. She followed 10 minutes later. I know I messed up, she said behind me. I nodded. But I still love you. I turned, met her eyes. I believe you. Hope flashed across her face for a second. Then I added, but that's not the problem. She stepped back like I slapped her. Because she expected punishment. What she got was closure. Unshakable. Quiet. Finished. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Because the war was over. Not won. Not lost. Just done. She moved through the house like a tenant waiting for eviction. Didn't ask questions anymore. Didn't offer plans. Didn't reach. She just waited. For what? I don't know. Maybe for a miracle. Maybe for the version of me she threw away to suddenly walk back through the door, smiling, forgiving, begging to be let back in. But she didn't realize. That version of me didn't leave. He died. And the man who replaced him didn't knock anymore. He let himself out. And didn't bother closing the door. Because some exits don't need locks. They just need enough silence for the other person to hear themselves clearly. For the first time. It happened on a Sunday. The sun was barely up. The house was quiet in that way it only gets when something's missing. I'd packed the night before. Not in panic. Not in anger. In silence. I didn't take much, just what was mine. Left the rest. Let her keep the couch we never touched anymore. The bed where my side had already gone cold. The photos she hadn't looked at in years. Let her have the shell. I took the soul. She was asleep when I left. Face pressed into the pillow like she still expected something to be there when she woke. And for years I was. No matter how cold she became. No matter how many doors she closed. No matter how invisible I felt. I stayed. Until I didn't. No note. No text. No announcement. Just keys on the counter. And a silence louder than any argument we ever had. She called at 7:43 a.m. I watched the screen light up. Didn't answer. At 8:15, another one. Then a message. Where are you? No punctuation. No emoji. Just panic, dressed in pretend calm. I didn't reply. At 9:07, she said, please come home. But she wasn't asking me to come back. She was asking time to rewind. And that's the one thing I never learned how to do for her. I stood in my new apartment, window cracked, coffee in hand. The silence was different here. Not empty. Peaceful. I wasn't heartbroken. Wasn't vindicated. I was free. Not because I won, but because I finally stopped playing. At 10:22, the last message came in. Just one sentence. You said you'd never leave. I stared at it for a long time. Then I smiled. Because I hadn't. Not when she stopped touching me. Not when she lied to my face. Not even when I caught her slipping into someone else's orbit. I stayed through all of that. But she never noticed the one day I actually left. Was the day she told me I'd only get love. When she felt like giving it. That was the moment I started disappearing. And by the time she looked up, I was already gone. Not with rage. Not with revenge. Just with everything she once had. And never thought she'd lose. Me.